CCR TV, channel of God's love. A warm welcome to all our viewers on this episode of Activists of Goa. In this episode, we bring to you Goa's social activist of repute, who has been in the field of social activism ever since her college days. She is a lawyer by profession, but her love for those who are at the receiving end of justice, the marginalized section of society, women and minor children who are victims of domestic violence, molestation, rapes, and other social evil receive her undivided attention and helping hand. She fights against inequality in society and has been instrumental in bringing in many progressive reforms to the prisons in Goa. She is closely associated with the Prison Ministry Goa and reaches out with legal help to those who cannot afford their own legal counsel. CCR TV today takes pleasure in welcoming the founder member of Bailancho Sadh, human rights activist, criminal lawyer and voice of the oppressed sections of society. We welcome Advocate Caroline Collasso.
Thank you.
Welcome to our studios, Advocate Caroline. And it's really a pleasure to have you here on this our series, Activists of Goa.
I'm happy to be here.
To begin with, can you tell our viewers when was the first time that you actually stood out in a crowd, and voicing your concern for justice over any social issue?
Wow, that was so long back. But yes, as a young student, I got involved with social issues mainly through the ICUF, that was All India Catholic University Federation, which filled our minds with the issues of social justice and the need for change in society. And they had a slogan which says, "We live in an unjust world, but we will not leave it the way we found it." So these were things that fired our imagination. And then there was this big student agitation when I think largely in class 11 when I was in Chogle College, where there was this mark scandal issue, about a particular student who was given marks in order to get into medical college. And there are a whole lot of very senior student leaders came to our college. And so I, being the class representative, had to also enthuse other students about the need to have our medical colleges free from any kind of, corrupt practices. So that was my first tryst with actually speaking in front of students, telling them to join the agitation. And then of course there were so many, because from then I became part of the Progressive Students Union, the PSU. And they took up so many issues, whether it is bus concession or colleges that were capitation colleges that were planning to come into Goa, and of course social issues of street plays. So then I got quite involved.
As you said, it was long ago, but somewhere there has to be a beginning, right?
Yes.
There has to be a first time, and then you continue.
Yes.
Now, see, considering all that thing, say about 30 years back, the very concept of social activism was very much unheard of in Goa. It was a new thing that just making entry, as you said, at university level, college level. But how did this actually, at this point of time, the actual spirit in you for activism develop? Was there any other igniting factor?
No, so
maybe even from your parental side and all this stuff?
Yes, so my parents would have played definitely a big role, because this concept of justice and being like always equal and equality was obviously a seed that was sown right at my home. But as I told you, various ideas that came from A is reading of books, but ICUF and the PSU, the Progressive Students Union, which had the whole dream of a complete equitable society, was through talks and through actually village camps. I think that is what helped me a lot, because being in a city, we really don't get to see what's happening in the villages, where even say for a bucket of water you have to go such long miles. At that point of time there was not even tapped water. We were so privileged. Then this question of caste, I didn't know that it existed in Goa till we went to a village camp and we saw that.
And actually saw the reality.
Yes, we lived in a slum in Zuari for almost 10 days to experience how people in a slum live. It was very, very difficult because, you know, not the comfort of your bed. So all these are experiences, and we used to have this concept called study circles, wherein we would read like philosophies and you know, books of really depth. At this circle, someone would have to read the book and then we would discuss it. So I think all of this helped to kindle the concept of justice.
Yeah, you just said that you had that study circle, reading of books, and I have been following you for quite some time as a social activist, you know, your activities. But is it true that really that spirit of activism was influenced in you through reading of certain authors?
Yes, of course.
Can you briefly name one or two authors? Because our youth are also watching this series and it can inspire them.
Yes, and I think
reading can make a big difference to a person's life.
Very big difference.
Very big difference.
Because they are philosophies and for people who have lived their philosophies, you know. So whether it was like, remember Franz Fanon, Wretched of the Earth was one of the book, Roots, you know, by Alex Haley. Then even if it was To Kill a Mockingbird, you know, it's a very beautiful book at the thing. Talking about how you know, he was defending a rape accused who was black, and at the time of you know, how difficult it was, the humiliation he faced from society for a white man defending a black person. So a lot of issues come about in that, how, you know, even how trials go. Then even Kafka, I liked Kafka's The Trial. You know, the absurdity, I mean, it's absurdist writing. It was quite difficult to read it twice because it didn't quite make sense at that time. But of course, these books, then we read Che Guevara, and, you know, Motorcycle Diaries, and they're like, you know, fired such an imagination in us. Like when you read this person going on this whole trip to whole of South America, and how the journey changed him when he saw the inequalities as a young medical student, you know.
So it's true that the books that you read at that point of time had a major role to play in influencing your mind.
Yes.
Ma'am Caroline, can you tell us, for a young college going student at that time of, you know, in the 80s, joining a social activism group and, you know, and raising your voice against the system, how was it? Was it a safe proposition, or was there any fear? Was it a challenge as a young student for you?
Of course, it was a challenge. I wouldn't say so much fear, because somehow I felt, you know, I was always part of a group.
Okay.
So like whether it's the PSU or whether it was, ICAF, we didn't do any kind of like street demonstrations. But even otherwise, whichever group I wasn't a single activist. It was always part of a larger group. So I can be proud to say that I was even arrested a number of times as part of the thing. But I was never afraid, because I knew that we were there for a team, and that somebody would bail us out, because it was that we were there not as criminals, but we were there fighting for justice. But I would say it was a challenge, because remember, these were the 80s, where no phones, not even a landline phone. So when we used to go,
even the transport system
was bad, so we didn't even know how to contact our families to say that we are arrested. We you know, like mom, when we used to go for a camp which was 7 days, she didn't know how safe we were. Now parents need to be in touch with you literally every single day. So how are you? What's there? Are you eating? And things like this.
Know the status.
Not at all. Like you know, one of the first also things that helped me a lot was this big Padyatra we took for Novengoy, where we went around as a group for literally a month or 2 months, I think it was, as a young student.
All over Goa.
All over Goa. I got to see a whole lot of Goa I never would have seen if we had not walked. But I got to learn so many, you know, like issues through that Padyatra, is how to find your way. Like last bus has gone, we landed in Aldona. I remember left college, landed in Aldona, and there was no bus back, and the entire Padyatra had already moved to another village. So there are challenges, but it makes you tough. So of course my parents must have been worried, you know, but they somehow knew, I think believed in me, and I think she believed that, my mom always says that she believed that I would somehow be alert and be find my way. So
I think to a large extent, such challenges help to build that inner courage and strength in you, right?
Yes.
Even to face any adversities, find your own solutions.
We
and
would.
that is how you have.
We would have to be alert all the time,
Alert
you
all
know,
the
because
time.
there is,
Correct.
as you said, no phones and traveling alone. But I think it was challenging.
Ma'am, can you recall the first major issue that you actually took up as a social activist, or whether single-handedly or collectively, and tasted real good success? You can single out any one, you know.
Oh, there's so many. Like, I mean, the very first
So major,
agitation
yeah.
of the Marx scandal was a
It
was
was
a
a
success.
success.
But that wasn't because
Resounding
of me.
success.
I was just part of that. I was happy I lent my voice to it. Thereafter, there were so many. I mean, along the way, I'm quite sure the progressive student, we had struggles for bus, like, you know, suddenly increase the bus fare so high that it would be difficult for students to afford it. Even that time, it was like 50 paisa and all, but it was
It
lot
made
for
a big difference. Yeah.
So we won a lot of small battles along the way. But in terms of, like, you know, in the women's group, then once I joined the women's group, we fought for a women's police station.
Okay.
And that women's police station didn't come out very easily, that the government gave it to us. You know, a forensic laboratory came into reality now. And the reasons where we are saying Goa should, as a state, should have their own forensic laboratory.
The issue began that time, the
began
struggle
that time,
to set
yes.
up, and it took so many
It
years.
took so many
decades,
years,
in fact.
decades, and we continued to
Yeah.
pursue it. But the women's police station came much earlier.
Much earlier.
But it came out by a very strong, you know, movement that we had to make memorandums, we had to discuss, we had to say what we want, and it's still, I would say, not the best one. It is still, as you say, work in progress. We need trained police officers there, we need sensitive police officers there, but it is one of the victories. Then as I moved into an organization called the Jagrut Goinkarachi Fauj, which was basically a very militant organization fighting against modern mass tourism, we would call it at that time, where charter flights by the dozens were supposed to come into Goa, and, you know, the government was justifying setting up of numerous 5-star hotels all along our coast. So these, then we fought against golf courses, we fought against the Japanese holiday village, and these were ones we won. They didn't set up the golf course at Nakeri, Betul, even though government land was acquired. The Japanese holiday village at Arambol didn't take off. And even charter flights, the government then began to, you know, think a little,
have a rethink
on a number. Even that master plan, we tore it and, you know, told the government our protest is not against proper tourism, but it's against this modern mass tourism, which is unregulated, which is, you know, there is no discussion on carrying capacity, there's no discussion on how many tourists can Goa hold. Even now, I think, like, we have a tourist population more than the population of Goa.
Actual domestic population.
Yes, it's
a
like
mismatch actually.
It's beyond, and then they justify more hotels, and then more hotels means more of our coast is eroded.
Ma'am, now being a full-time criminal lawyer, and how do you divide your time between your legal profession and your activism?
It is a challenge in terms of time. Time is my biggest thing. In fact, we have to reduce on sleep, and, you know, I always have my
sacrifice
pile
family
of
time.
Family time also, of course, because we don't go for a lot of the parties and the you know, functions that we would have liked to go. But I think I don't feel the loss of it, because that's what I've chosen to do. And I don't think that excuse, everyone asks me this question actually quite often. I don't think that time, if you're really interested in an issue, the time is ever a problem. You somehow make the time. You have to cut corners here, cut corners there. But
little
like,
bit adjustments
to
your
there.
Personal calendar.
Yes, but you can. Because see, I know it's like, especially as a woman lawyer, it's a challenge, because we finish court, say 4:30. Thereafter, we have to be in office to meet the clients. And thereafter, we have to do the research for the next day. And the replies. So it's like literally till 10 o'clock at night, which most women cannot stay. So there's a huge dropout rate actually of women law students who don't continue in the profession, because it is a very big challenge.
Very taxing on
Taxing
time.
and challenge. So you, as you say, you adjust.
Right now, which are the areas you specialize in as far as human rights activism is concerned?
In law, in my law practice, my specialization is family law. So I do a lot of cases of custody of children, the fight for maintenance, the fight for getting them back into their homes, the, you know, all of these issues which are surrounding like violence, and if it's a case of a victim where normally the prosecution is taken over by the public prosecutor, in many cases I assist the prosecution to so that the victim gets justice by preparing her for her deposition in the court, or to assist her that she's emotionally stable, because a lot of the strength of the victory in a case for a rape victim or a domestic violence victim would be how well she deposes. But courts are still very, unfamiliar places, and they feel very insecure sometimes. So we need to prepare them. And of course the public prosecutors sometimes have so many cases on their roster. I don't know if they would actually give so much of attention to a rape case as much as they would have liked to.
And not expect them to
yes.
do it.
So I would then assist the prosecution in cases of trafficking or POCSO Act where the child victim, or a domestic violence act. We have a lot of background work is preparing the victim to depose and remember a lot of facts which then
because
would
finally
help her
what
case.
Counts is that how she deposes
in the court.
Ma'am, asking about talking about your activism now, Goa is such a small state, every other person knows the other person either by friendship or by some link, by relation. So in this situation, when you're taking up any social causes and fighting for the particular issue, is there any kind of pressure on you to soft pedal on the issue in hand, and how do you face this kind of a situation?
Think this kind of an issue comes if you mix up with, at least what I think, with those powers that be that then can use you to soft pedal. If for example, like I was a member of the Goa State Consumer Commission for at least 5 years during that term. So it's a government post, and they had very important cases that would come there, real estate cases, insurance company cases, and where like the amounts of the cases were like in crores of rupees. So one of the thing, when I first joined, I was given a kind of like a briefing, and they told me that politicians may call you, and some influential people may call you. You just don't rebuff them, but kind of just say like I will look into it or something. Give a very soft thing. But I can tell you with a clean heart and a clear mind that in my entire term, I think it's they know who they're dealing with. I didn't get 100% didn't get a call from any politician, from any real estate, from any big parties to say, oh, my case is before you, can you give an order, because it's like a very important post in the sense from the state, the next level would be the National Commission, which is at Delhi. So people would look at this court as almost the last court of last reprieve.
So you take this as a victory for you?
I think
your uprightness and
yes. I think people don't approach you
and
because they just know that they will not be able to tamper with me, because I have not got this.
Now I want to shift the focus a little, coming to the topic of domestic violence. How serious is this domestic violence issue in the state of Goa as of now?
Good you asked this, because I don't know, till now whenever I have done so many training sessions on this Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, it came out only so is domestic violence a reality in Goa is the same question I get for over the years. And I would say that like if in my office, which is not so it's in one corner of Goa, I get at least 2 to 3 cases of domestic violence a week. They may not always fructify in the form of a case, because then she may decide against it or whatever. But so it's a big reality. People do not correlate so many things. Like for example, when you say domestic violence, you also have to see the number of cases of divorce that get filed in a year. It's not at all funny. In fact, it is so many, the number of cases that are being filed, which means that there is something not right in the home. That at one point of time, the Chief Minister of Goa even said that, oh my God, there are so many cases of divorce. I think we should have pre-marital counseling, and things like this. Even the Family Service Center, which deals with...
They have it.
Yes, they have it. Kind of took note that maybe there is something more that we need to do. You have to look at the number of cases that are being, entry of women cases of depression at the IPHB. So like one would say, oh, so many cases of...
They are all related to domestic violence?
Because of the domestic violence, they suffer from depression, they suffer from a whole lot of,
they can't stand the stress.
So the stress. But if you look at that and you're not correlating it, like alcoholism also, like you'll see a lot of number of people admitted in at the various rehab homes. You look at the number of alcoholics anonymous groups or the Al-Anon groups, which is the wives of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's when you will see that all is not well. So the cases are plenty. Sometimes they get passed off as maybe say a murder case. I was in the High Court last week when a case for bail came up. That women, it perhaps went off as a case or get recorded in the police records as a case of murder. But when the actual case came out, the woman who died had 33 injuries prior to her death. So, but it went as a murder case, 302 IPC. But obviously it was a case of domestic violence. He beat her up. She fell down the stairs. She died. And so this is just one more statistics that will get recorded, but will not be correlated as a case of domestic violence.
Now, talking about domestic violence, is this domestic violence only confined to a certain strata of society, class of society, or
not
is
at
it
all.
Across?
Not at all. In fact, one would be surprised that I get cases of doctors, of lawyers, who one would say education then is a benchmark. Once the women are educated, they will not face domestic violence.
Yes. That is the general feeling like.
Not at all true. I get
cases
true. From all strata of society. That just shows us that patriarchal attitudes and patriarchy is still so much alive, where they believe he's the head. Like a woman doctor even still needs permission from her husband if she has to go to her mother's place, or he makes a whole lot of, like, the salary of a lot of educated women are given directly to the mother-in-law. Things like this is still a huge issue.
But this is all, as of now, I think, shrouded in secrecy.
Of course, it's
doesn't
shrouded.
Come out of the four walls.
Yes, I think a lot more studies need to be done, or to show that these are reality.
Having heard what you have said, is there any serious attempt made by the authorities, the state authority, I mean, to do some, in-depth research in this field?
They haven't.
So they can, have a data bank and, take corrective steps, so that the future is better for the women.
They should, but they do not.
They do not.
For example, if you see the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act has a section wherein actually in the act where it says that the government should make all attempts to publicize this act. So when you say publicize, they have to put up hoardings, they have to put money for halfway homes, for counselors. All these are part of the law. But Goa government is the only state that has not put a single Naya Paisa for this act, either to set up the homes or for the counsellors or for awareness. Of course, they do some things on radio and TV, but it's very, very sketchy and very little and very late.
Too little, too late.
Too little, too late. With regard to just one act. Similarly, if you look at the Goa State Commission for Women, for so long it didn't have a head, they didn't have a chairperson, till it had to come into the papers and people had to demand. So they're giving this important statutory body such a little attention, whereas in that, under the Goa State Commission for Women, they have so much of money, and they would have had funds, and one of their aims, for example, is study of women. So they could have done a thing on suicides. Why are there so many suicides? They could have done on mental health. Why are women within few years of marriage facing a lot of depression? So then it would be able to show that there is something wrong in our families. Look at the study of divorce. Find out what is the cause. All these things would have been studies which would have helped us then, or groups, to then take up the issue and find out solutions.
Is it what is being done is just a lip service, and there is no serious attempt being made to rectify this?
Yes, I think.
Yeah. Do you agree to that? Yeah.
Completely lip service. You have so many. It's like you have the Department of Women and Child Studies. As I told you, this important statutory body. I don't know what they have done in all these years. Like there are these, like, it's like you have laws, but a laws without any teeth becomes like completely toothless tiger.
Tell us something. When you talk about domestic violence against women, is it confined only to physical violence, or is also that emotional abuse, verbal abuse, suffocating and refusal of economic support to the spouse,
yes,
is also coming in the same category?
yes.
Is it
In
part
fact,
of
the definition of domestic violence under the
is
law
broad-based?
is broad-based. It is physical violence, sexual violence, which we are getting increasing cases of women being forced to watch pornography or being forced to do sexual acts against their will. So, physical violence, sexual violence, verbal emotional, which is a very large part, where the woman says, I feel suffocated, I feel like in a cage. So these where on a daily basis she is abused, made to feel small, she is belittled, like you're not fit enough, you can't cook, you're not, pretty enough, any kind of thing. So it's like if you face this on a daily basis, it's called verbal emotional abuse. And the good part of our act is that they've included another kind of domestic violence under the definition is economic violence.
Economic violence.
Which basically not even allowing her to work. Like they make it so when I got the proposal and all, I gave my wife permission to work, as if like you require his permission. So, not giving her to work or taking over her salary.
This mindset has to change.
It has to change.
Now, what does that act that was passed in 2005, talking about protection of women and against domestic violence, what are the safeguards to the victims of domestic violence in this act, and how does a woman actually, goes about?
So, this act is such a good act. In fact, we call it like a single windows system act, wherein you can get so many rights under one law. You can get custody, you can get protection, which is very, very important, in her home or outside her home. You can get maintenance, you can get compensation, and more than best part of it, you can get right to residence. Because one of the things, so 5 things under one law. And the best part about this act is you don't even have to go to court directly. You have to go to somebody called a protection officer. And the protection officer will fill up the forms which are required, will take her to court, will give her legal aid, and will do everything to see that her rights are granted. So, it is a really good act, but the protection officers have to be full time, they would have to be permanent, not the BDOs who are given additional charge. So, this is the status at present.
Is this known to the general public? Is the awareness level to that extent, or it is just lying in the books of law?
I can see that people are getting to know, because I can see the number of cases being filed. So, from that you get an idea that yes,
so
women
there
know
is an awareness,
but I think much more needs to be done with regard to this awareness.
Ma'am, if you see the recent trend, we find so many crimes against minors, whether it is about sexual and molestation or rapes, and they are committed against minors in Goa. Sometimes the offender is also known to the victim. In this situation, what is the rate of actual conviction when the case is going in the court?
I
of law?
don't know the actual percentage of the conviction rate, but all I know,
legal, are you happy with the conviction?
No, in fact, it has been highlighted in the papers. I think local newspapers have been highlighting the fact that the conviction rate is so very low, and it is surprising that because the law is good. You have the POCSO Act, the
POCSO
rape
Act.
law under 375 is made very, very stringent after the Nirbhaya case. There are so many changes in the CRPC, which is the Criminal Procedure Code, about how the police the victim has to be taken before lady police officer, lady practitioner, and the charge sheets have to be filed within time frames. So, all of these things are there, the special POCSO courts. But in spite of that,
ma'am, you said a very good thing, time frame. It is always said, justice delayed is justice denied.
Yes.
Is something like this happening in our state?
Well, the charge sheets are being filed now because of the direction within a time frame. Now we have a POCSO court, which is for children, offences against children. So, hopefully that if only this handling POCSO court, prior to that we had only the children's court, under the Goa Children's Act, which was handling all children. But even that court became overburdened. There were so many cases, and how many can a court deal with? So,
these cases are handled by this particular section and not by the normal police force, because they are overburdened. So with so many crimes happening in Goa.
It is being handled by the same police.
But there is a special cell for that, because see, they are the police are so overburdened with so many crimes in our land. Day
Yes.
by day we have different sets of crime. We are seeing something different style of committing crime now.
Yeah.
And of course the police have to investigate and all this thing. But with all this thing happening to our minors and our women and children, do you think that this should be a special investigating team
That has
will
been-
file charges, and conviction rate will definitely be high
That has
if the
been
proper
that has been a
investigation done?
demand
Yeah.
for like decades. The Supreme Court also passed an order which couldn't direct, but said that we hope that every state will have a dedicated police force only for crime, because see, then the police can give his full attention. Because see, in a case like
Yes.
rape, you have to take immediately to the doctor. You have to do immediately, the statements before the victim forgets or the other people are, tampered with, etc. So, if in case he has to do this rape and then suddenly he gets a call to go for bandobast, or
Yeah.
some VIP is coming.
Exactly.
So, for the next 1 week, he's busy with such trifles, as I would
So
say.
the priority
Goes down,
goes
and then
down.
1 week goes down, then the charge sheet gets delayed. There has to be and with modern equipment, do you still see our police with do not cross kind of a tape? Do you
Yes.
have like our fingerprint? We still have dog squad and this thing, which are so antiquated.
It's high time that we go high tech.
We are not at all high tech as compared to what the West is. I'm not even saying even half the level of investigation would have gone a long way, because then it would have a dedicated police force for crimes even, if not even say crimes against women and children, within that force. Even crimes, you can't have the same police force doing traffic
Exactly,
offences
yes.
and getting
That is
transferred.
what I was coming to actually. Why don't we have a dedicated team?
That will
only
have been left up to
investigation?
the police if they're
Yes.
concerned, with the government who believes
Because
that there is a need and who believes that Goa should be crime
in
free.
normal circumstances, we know the police are overburdened today. We cannot blame
Yes,
them also.
yes.
They work for hours and hours
Of
on
course.
duty.
I
They also have a
sympathize with
private
them.
life. They
Yeah.
have a family life. Sometimes they
And they are good. Many of the police
of them
officers are really good,
Yeah.
dedicated. But you can't do anything if, as you
But
say,
when they
that we are
work with
transfer-
such limitations, they
Yes.
can't give their best.
Yes.
Now tell me something. What is the role of the Directorate of Women and Child Development as far as the welfare of the victims of atrocities, especially on minors, is
So
concerned?
the Director of Women
Do they
and
have a role to play?
in this act itself, like
Yeah.
all the entire funding for the act is through women and child. So at least they could have done something like giving more funding so that the act gets promoted. Then, for example, the setting up of the halfway homes, which is there in the law, that because a woman just needs a little breather, she needs a little break from a violent situation. So you have to have halfway homes. Who's going to set up these homes? Even if someone sets up the homes, you have to the funds should come from the woman and child. They're not releasing funds for these homes for years together. Even under Street Providence, I'm a trustee of Street Providence, we are running homes which the government should have done. We are taking over their jobs of picking up these homeless people on the street, and then we have to have demonstrations and protest, literally threaten them to say you're not releasing our money, which is
Okay.
meant for
Yeah.
the homeless. So same way, women and child can do research, can give out statistics, can find out whether the schemes like Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao, like this whole concept of giving it for the woman for her wedding or for a thing, I think was a wrong concept. It sends a wrong message. Rather, you should have, now of course they've kind of tweaked it a bit, but if you say that you need a loan in order to 1 lakh rupees for her wedding, makes it sound that the girl's wedding is an expense, girl is a burden, girls have to get married. If you just turned it around and says give 1 lakh for a child's higher education, it would give a completely different message.
You mean to say what is there at present sends a wrong message?
Sends a wrong message that it's like literally like a dowry.
Yeah.
And that
And
a
it's
girl,
a burden on the parents.
yeah, so
to
therefore
give
we're
it.
giving you 1 lakh so that you can get your girl married.
Assistance.
And as if girl's marriage is the be all and end of all of everything, she has to get married. Rather, if they had even said for education, it would send the right message that education of the girl has to not be compromised. She should be given all backup if she wants to study further.
Ma'am, I want to shift your attention to a different topic now. You have worked as a social activist in the field of tourism also. Again, the bad policies, wrong policies. Right now, recently the police have clamped down very seriously on the touts who are operating in the coastal belt of North Goa,
Yes.
especially. And they are all non-state players, Now, from your point of view, how dangerous is this tout culture in Goa as far as Goa's healthy tourism business and growth of the tourism to a family level, family tourist center destination is concerned?
This
How
should have
dangerous
been
is this tout
this
culture?
tout culture and this kind of sex tourism culture
Yes.
of girls being brought in only because the Goa has got this bad name of being a
Kuch bhi
place
chalta
kuch
hai.
bhi chalta hai and that ladki milta hai kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It got a really, and now of course with
It's a reality, in
with the
fact, no,
casino
ma'am.
culture
Yeah.
and things like this, it's got an even bad name.
Are we going downhill?
Completely downhill.
Completely?
Because like the image that Goan women have, sadly, because it's actually, it's not the women of Goa that are I'm not saying they don't do, but are involved in this. A lot of girls are brought in from other states to maybe be at the casinos. A lot of women, because if we can see that the number of arrests, women rescued are often girls not from this state, so they're trafficked for sex because to keep up with this image that you can get girls in Goa. And I think that so therefore the whole of Goa being, which is actually so pristine, could have been
Yes.
sold as a green area, as like how Kerala sold it as God's own country. So when you think of Kerala,
Health tourism.
you think of health tourism, you think of medical tourism, you think of backwaters, you think of environment, which is ours, should have been our ESP, should have been our selling point. But when it comes to Goa, it's like the casino, it's the drugs, it's the sex tourism, it's touts, massage, anything goes kind of. So I don't think our people are safe, or women I would ever recommend to go to certain parts of certain beaches of Goa.
Exactly.
Because it's like a complete hellhole, literally.
Exactly. Now, as a human activist, you have been taking up so many burning issues, especially with respect to women and minor children and all the atrocities that they face, including domestic violence. Don't you think that all this can be taken care of, or at least some kind of control can be brought in, if there is a proper way of doing, having women empowerment? If we usher in this kind of era, there will be a change.
Of course, that's the key.
But what is been done for the empowerment of our women in our state?
Yes.
Can you put some light on this?
So there is, first and foremost, legal awareness is the key, because I would think that if you are aware of your legal rights, then you can enforce them, you can fight for them. Like we have, like Goa has what is called, at least they call it like the Uniform Civil Code, where women have 50% of the right in in the property of communion of assets, or you cannot be deprived of your rights in the ancestral property. But how many women even know of it, or how do you enforce it? So things like this, her rights, even say the Domestic Violence Act, there is the sexual harassment of women at the workplace, these are all special acts. Then the constitution itself gives so much of backup to say that Article 15, where where not only equality before law, but that even you can give special schemes and rights for women and scheduled class, because of the fact that we need a little fillip, women need a little backup to reach the level of equality. So so talks are important, awareness is important, various schemes also are important, but more than that also budgeting so that women, the Goa state government budgets for so that women can take control of certain resources. So I think that much more needs to be done, can be done. Women activists are doing it to a small extent, lawyers are doing it to a small extent in their various fields, challenging the system, challenging laws that are maybe
but
not
the goal
right.
can be achieved.
Very much achievable, because we are a small state, communication is good,
and
network
education
is good,
level is also at
still
the
high.
higher level.
Yes.
So all these factors can contribute
Of course
to
can
bringing in very strong women empowerment in the state.
Yes, there is the Goa state, the Goa State Commission for Women should be much more strengthened. They have the Center for Women's, now it's called Department for Women's Studies at the Goa University.
At the Goa University.
Yeah, Dr. Shaila doing good job, trying to create awareness. But these are bodies that shouldn't be, in any way hindered or fettered in their dream for empowerment.
Ma'am, actually we are running out of time, but I have a few more important questions to you, and I want straight answers.
Yes.
Very honest answers. There's a perception in the mind of some people, when you talk about social activists, social activism, that social activists, when they take up issues on a public platform, there is a silent understanding between them and the powers that be, and what the people actually see is something different. Not all, but few people in certain villages also. This is a mindset. Now, what do you have to say on
I
this?
would say that is a true. That,
It
that
is true.
It is true. With, as I would say, that there are bad eggs in any
Bad
basket.
elements.
There are there are doctors who would perhaps remove somebody's kidney for a for a price. There are lawyers who would do some jugglery or setting with the police. So same way, why would activists not be part of this kind of a thing where
The temptations are there.
Temptations are there, but there are that. Let's not the few activists who are there tarnish the image of very dedicated, very
Sincere,
solid, very
honest.
sincere, with high integrity. I can name hundreds. There are some as part of groups. Consistently, Rainbow Warriors is one organization that has been consistently taking up issues of with Abhijit Prabhudesai, Diana Tavares. I mean, they've been there in the field, whether it's mining, whether it's sand mining, whether it's CRZ issues, working with whether it's the regional plan, and they're not just desk level or armchair activists. They are at the field, getting arrested on the railway tracks when this comes to the issue of coal. They formulated this group called Goyanth Kodsonaka, whether it's the Goa Foundation that has been consistently fighting with Claude Alvarez at the helm at 75 years, fighting cases in court. Their integrity cannot be questioned. These are people of men and women of metal and steel. Some may be part of group. Judith Almeida, my hero, I would call her heroine, fighting CRZ issues and winning them sole-handedly, no one backing her, taking a bus to Pune. So let's not, these are people then in every field, whether it's in the consumer field, say Roland Martins with his Goa can, whether it's Christopher Fonseca in the trade union, they are there for 30 years. Yes. You can't fool
and
people.
And they have built up an image, and they will not risk it for any reason.
And I can tell you one thing, you can't fool people all the time.
Neither can you change people's mindset.
There will be some. I know people who as you say shout galis at even say Abhijit and all, but like I think, like from what I've seen, nobody knows that 24/7 literally when, that time we used to talk, say Mao Zedong said, think of the revolution 24/7. These are activists who are actually there literally 24/7 at a great personal cost. They don't go for functions. Their personal lives are so austere. It's high thinking, simple living. Simple living, high thinking. People like, Claude and all, why do they need to file? Why do they need to sacrifice so much? Somebody said even at the cost of so much of their personal lives.
Right.
So these activists let them.
In fact, they can relax and live a very peaceful life.
Who wants the cops at your door? Who wants you to?
Constant.
And it is constant because the government is bringing changes in the TCP Act. Suddenly 16B came, suddenly the CRZ law is going to be, suddenly forests are burning, Madhe issue, IIT, Melauli, those women needed guidance. You need, so RTI applications literally on a daily basis, because if you say Melauli issue, all these organizations had to ask for RTI to tell the people what is happening there. You think it's easy to write an RTI? Write, follow up, get the information
and use it for
them.
Ma'am, so, having been in this field for so many years, you have also sacrificed your personal life, as you said, making adjustments, sacrifices here and there, and this is where you are today. Do you think the government takes the activists seriously?
They do.
In the true sense of the word?
I think so, they do, because they are scared of them.
They are scared?
They are, of course they are. I have heard it actually from, the mouth of people who sometimes are close to the ministers. So they are all the time aware. They said, morcha kattale, so they
the back of the mind that feels
there. They just try their luck and hope to see that that they will not. But and they have challenged the government to such a large. See the CRZ issue. Everywhere that Nilesh Kabral went and tried to force the plan, people went and had protests.
They stood up.
They stood up.
This is something very nice, and our viewers will also be happy with this reply. Biranda Satanga.
Of course, Biranda.
Okay, that is the truth. Now that brings me to the last question to you. and I want the straight answer. Can you ever imagine the small state of Goa without the presence of social activists?
Oh no. Whatever has happened in Goa as of now, if Goa is what it is, even it's a lot destroyed, but I would think that Goa without social activists would be a ruined Goa, would be a sad Goa, because if at all our sand dunes are still there, it is because of activists who have fought and who have challenged in court hotels that wanted to build it on the sand dunes. If our forests are there, it is because the activists went and demanded that the forest committees are in place, and that happened. If the sand mining was stopped, sea sand mining was stopped, if the river mining right now has got a very strong high court order which is made monitoring by the deputy collector, by the police to do round the clock sand mining of the rivers, which was leading to the collapse of the every struggle, and if you can still see a really beautiful,
the social activists have been
behind,
in the forefront.
Yes.
Okay. Ma'am, it was pleasure having you in our studios, and this was a wonderful talk with you. Thank you so much for sparing your precious time.
Thank you
so much
inviting me here also.
You're welcome. So this was Advocate Caroline Collasso. She is sacrificing her family time, her personal pleasures to be active on the field as a social activist. God bless her. Keep watching your favorite channel, the CCR TV channel. Thank you.